Hello and welcome to Jay Coletti's Racket Reviews. My name is Jay Coletti and I will be your hostess. Here on Racket Reviews we are dedicated to learning about all things organized crime, and today I'm really looking forward to talking with you about Detroit's Purple Gang. The Purple Gang was the most powerful gang in Detroit during their brief reign, and we have a lot to go over today. If you're enjoying the channel and would like to become a Racket Reviews patron, please head on over to the Patreon account and join the Coletti family. Now, without further ado, we have much to discuss, so let's get right to it. While the Detroit Partnership was the organization that ran the most recognizable type of mafia in the city, during Prohibition the term the Purple Gang was synonymous with organized crime. Just about any criminal in the city was referred to as a purple or a purple gangster. It became so commonplace that it's easy to forget that the Purple Gang itself, although they would deny the existence of such a thing, was in fact its own unique criminal gang in the city of Detroit. The Purple Gang refers to a group of Jewish gangsters, a group often referred to as the Kosher Nostra in the United States. These gangsters were the most powerful organized criminals in the city. Yes, even more powerful than the budding Detroit Partnership at the time. Unlike the Partnership, however, the Purple Gang's star rose quickly, burned bright, then exploded. The founding leaders of the Purple Gang were the Burnstein brothers. There is some debate about whether or not it is spelled with an E or with a U. Most agree that Burnstein with an E is the correct spelling, but there are others who insist that it is incorrect. I'm not going to get into the middle of it. I have still not recovered over the debate about the Bernstein Bears and their name spelling. I really thought it was spelled with an A, am I crazy? Anyway, Harry Burnstein, a Polish Jew, moved with his family to the city of New York from Russia before the turn of the century. Bernstein and his wife's eldest son and second child, Abraham Bernstein, was born in New York City in 1892. Abe Bernstein had three younger brothers, Joseph, Raymond, and Isidore, who would join him in his criminal trajectory. Their father, Harry, was a shoemaker and in 1902 finally earned enough money to move the family out of the city of New York to start his own shoemaking business in Detroit, where the profit margin would be much better for them. Harry Bernstein set up shop not far from the Jewish ghetto and would earn the family a decent living. Bernstein's sons, however, were not content to watch their father work this hard just to earn enough to barely get by, especially when they were living so close to several Jewish criminals who were earning fortunes by running gambling, prostitution, and extortion rings. It has been noted on several occasions that Abe Bernstein was very smart, but did not enjoy spending his time at school. He was always in trouble when he did manage to show up for class, and his brothers were the same way. Abe and his brothers were already earning money to help their family throughout their childhood and teenage years by being paper boys and later employees of the Ford Motor Company. And when the Bernstein brothers did end up going to school, they were sent to what was essentially a permanent detention. At this time, Bishop's School, the school attended by the Bernstein brothers, had classes divided by students who took education seriously and students who were problematic. The Bernsteins were lumped in with the problematic children. These students were just about anywhere in age range between K through 12. And it is here that they would meet the gangsters with whom they would soon form their own street gang, including Harry, Louie, and Sam Fleacher, who ended up being some of the top men in the Purple Gang. Ben and Sam Purple Cohen, liquor distributors specifically involved in the nightclub scene. Philip and Harry Keywell, who would be interrogated by police regarding the St. Valentine's Day massacre, although never charged. Morris Rader, the man thought to be the brains behind the Purple Gang, who was put away for murder in November of 1930. Harry Altman, who would avoid a murder charge in 1931 after a key witness refused to testify. Abe Zussman, a murderer and drug dealer. He preferred knives and was known to go to movie theaters and wait behind his intended victims until the end of the film. When applause erupted, he would take out a knife and stab the victim from behind, and the applause would drown out the sound of the victim's cries of pain. Irving Shapiro, an extortionist and kidnapper, he was one of the most infamous of the Purple Gang's men. Previously tried and acquitted for extortion in 1928, he would move on to work on his own, but would wind up dead at age 25 after getting into an altercation regarding the money earned from a kidnapping operation. Zygmunt Selbin, shot to death in 1929, Ziggy himself was a notorious Purple Gang gunman, known to have once cut a man's finger off to steal his ring. Sam Davis, known as the Gorilla because of his physical strength, not very bright but extremely violent, and was suspected of murder in 1934. And Jack Budd, quiet and fearless. Budd would go on to be Abe Bernstein's driver and bodyguard, and among the most trusted men outside of Bernstein's own brothers. All of this from the same school, that's sort of hard to believe if you think about it, and they all worked together very early and were running crap games in the schoolyard when they were boys. This juvenile gang would quickly grow into an organized group and begin performing odds and ends jobs for the established gangsters in the area. They started off with theft and worked their way up to extortion and intimidation. They would soon be involved in serious crime, such as murder. As is almost always the case, Prohibition was the turning point that brought these men from the position of murderers to mobsters in short order. What made it even better for the Purple Gang, as they would soon be known, was the fact that Michigan became dry early. In 1916, Prohibition in Michigan was approved to become law in 1918. This meant that the city, which sat right on Canada's border, was not only prime realty for all mobsters during Prohibition, but that the mobsters in Detroit had a head start on this unbelievable opportunity of placement. Michigan was the United States' dry run for Prohibition. And I know that joke is pretty corny, but maybe it would make for some good moonshine. Okay, now I'm really done. As Prohibition's reach grew, so too did the Purple Gang's influence. Mobsters from all over and from various ethnic backgrounds came to Detroit to begin an association with the Purple Gang. The Purples grew in numbers and influence. Soon, Abe Burnstein would be elevated to boss status and would have a crew of his most trusted men run his gang's various operations. This set of what we would typically refer to as capos if this were the Cosa Nostra setup included the following. Charles Leader and Henry Shore, who had run the Oakland Sugar House and had initially taken the street urchins under their criminal wing. Their main business during Prohibition was to set up distilleries. Before the Purple Gang got to be known as the Purples, they were known as the Sugar House Gang or the Sugar House Boys. Sam Solomon, a major Detroit bookmaker and the mastermind behind the subgroup of the Little Jewish Navy, which was a group of Purples who owned several boats and participated in bringing booze across the Detroit River through rum running and hijacking. Mike Gelfand, known as One-Armed Mike because he was missing an arm, was a racketeer and speakeasy, or more accurately blind pig operator. Charles Arbach, known as the Professor, because of his clean-cut appearance and collection of rare books. Arbach was a New York pimp who moved to Detroit and mentored several of the Purples. Jack Selbin, known to sell liquor out the back of his storefront. Rumor has it that he would place his baby son in front of the store window to watch out for police officers. The baby would cry if he saw men in uniform. Talk about starting in the rackets young. I think Jack Selbin's son takes the cake for being the youngest mobster to get started. And of course, Abe's little brothers, Raymond and Joe Burnstein, who had several responsibilities and would be more like underbosses in this structure. The Purple Gang started the Cleaners and Dryers War in the 1920s when Abe Burnstein, working with the Detroit Federation of Labor, created the Wholesale Cleaners and Dryers Association. Here we go again with Detroit unions. Cleaners and dryers in the city were then coerced to join and pay dues to the Wholesale Cleaners and Dryers Association. Business owners who opted not to go along with this union would be harassed, they would have their businesses blown up, or they would even be murdered. On October 26, 1925, Novelty Cleaners and Dryers Company and Empire Cleaners and Dryers Company were bombed. Later, Sam Sigmund and Samuel Polikoff, vocal opponents to the union, were murdered. By 1928, 13 Purples were tried for extortion for their role in the war, but were all acquitted. This acquittal marked the start of the Purple Gang's golden era, which lasted until 1931. And because I will never miss an opportunity to show you a link between organized crime and the Kennedy family, I have a rumor that I just have to share with you. Again, do keep in mind that this is a rumor, since Joseph Kennedy, JFK's father, has always denied any bootlegging involvement. The story goes that in the 1920s, Joseph Kennedy, who was reputed to have been a bootlegger who smuggled liquor from England and Ireland through Canada into the United States, shipped some of his booze through the Purple Gang territory without permission. This resulted in the gang marking him for death. It wasn't until Kennedy struck a deal with the Chicago politician Joseph Diamond Joe Esposito that he was able to negotiate the removal of his name from the Purple hit list. Esposito himself would later be killed on March 21, 1928, after turning against Al Capone. Speaking of Al Capone, he would rely heavily on the Purple Gang for his shipments of illegal booze from Canada. They were some of his primary middlemen. It is believed by many as well that Capone relied on the Purple Gang for more than just liquor transportation. One of the leading theories is that members of the Purple Gang were involved as lookouts or even triggermen during the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929 in Chicago. Any connection to the St. Valentine's Day Massacre remains speculation since no provable or concrete evidence has ever been presented. The connection with Al Capone makes this theory plausible. It would also be a smart move on Capone's part to keep his men as far away from the massacre as possible, since he was obviously going to be the primary suspect in masterminding the entire operation. More on that in previous videos. The origin of the name Purple Gang remains a debate to this day. It's an interesting and memorable name to be sure, but it does leave one wondering, well, why were they called that? One theory contends that it was named after Purple member Sam Purple Cohen, who had been a major leader early on. That seems unlikely since the Burnsteins are really the ones who controlled the group. Some say it came from one of the gangsters wearing a purple sweater to the meeting where they decided to change their name from the Sugar House Boys. This is one of the less popular theories, but I do like the idea of everybody coming to meet for a name change and one guy just pointing to somebody else and saying, hey, he's wearing a purple sweater, let's just call ourselves the Purple Gang. Another theory is that the name originated from the Cleaners and Dryers War as a reference to a purple fabric dye used to ruin the clothes during this conflict. This is probably my favorite of all of the stories. The Purple Gang really got its name and became popularized in 1927, so that does line up with the Cleaners and Dryers War. However, despite my opinion, this is not the most common theory. The origin that gets the most play comes from comments made by two store owners to the police regarding the crew. The quote itself varies, as does the number of store owners, but the conversation went something like this. These boys are not like other children their age. They're tainted, off color. They're rotten, purple like the color of bad meat. They're a purple gang. Because of the variability of the quote, it is widely believed that a journalist made up the name and the story. However, this story is the most commonly cited origin by most historians. Not by me, though. I like the story about the purple dye. It has narrative. It was difficult to pin down the Purple Gang in Detroit. Being a purple became synonymous with being a criminal, even if an individual had little or no connection to the actual Purple Gang. Police would often bring in several suspects at a time and take group photos. It is very likely that several innocent people got lumped in with a group photo just by meeting a description or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nevertheless, the group photo would be taken, and soon all pictured would be blasted out by the media and written up as Purple Gangsters. As you can imagine, that made it even harder for them to be acquitted in court. It also meant that little mercy would be shown by police. Paul Kavieff, one of the lead historians regarding all things Purple Gang, said that a writer of the time claimed that 70% of the cases solved relied on physical violence to coerce an admission of guilt. Now, that doesn't mean that they always had the wrong guy in that case. That just means that 70% of these admissions came by way of questionable, unreliable, and today illegal means. At the height of the Purple Gang's power, they were involved in assault, bombing, hijacking, rum running, the wire service, theft, gambling, extortion, prostitution, kidnapping, narcotics, union tampering, and it's reported that they were responsible for over 500 homicides. They were also the first group in Detroit to have committed murder with a machine gun in March of 1927. But oceans rise and empires fall. And that's right, this episode does have your obligatory reference to the Hamilton musical that you should watch if you haven't seen it. The Purple Gang's empire rose to incredible heights, but would soon come crumbling down. The Purple Gang began crashing in on itself by the beginning of the 1930s, with the Collingwood Manor Massacre, when Ray Burnstein, Abe's little brother, orchestrated the deaths of little Jewish Navy leaders Joe Lebowitz, Jaime Paul, and Isidore Sutker on September 16, 1931. The three men, escorted by Sol Levine, went to the meeting with the Purple Gang at apartment 211 at 1740 Collingwood Avenue. They all believed this was supposed to be a friendly meeting. However, when they arrived, Purple Gang gunmen Harry Kewell and Irving Milberg murdered Lebowitz, Paul, and Sutker. Levine, a good friend of Bernstein, was not murdered. Perhaps Bernstein should not have been so sentimental. Allowing Levine to go free was what ended up cracking the foundation of the Purple Gang's power. Despite having his life spared, Levine was convinced that he would be next on the Purple Gang's hit list. So, when the Purple Gang was on trial for the murders, Levine testified against them. As a result, Bernstein, Kewell, and Milberg were sentenced to life imprisonment. This was the beginning of the end. After this conviction, the Purple Gang would dissolve, and its members would either be arrested, killed, or absorbed into other gangs. Abe Bernstein had diversified his allies and by 1929 was already working hand-in-hand with Joe Adonis and Meyer Lansky in New York. Through Lansky, Bernstein would focus on Miami, Florida gambling operations. When Ray was put away for life, Abe dedicated nearly all of his time trying to get his brother out of prison to no avail. Abe Bernstein would die on March 7, 1968, but his Purple Gang had died over 3 decades before. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Bracket Reviews talking about the history of the Purple Gang. As you can see, covering the Detroit partnership alongside the Purple Gang in the same video would have been way too much information to cover. Let me know in the comment section below or on Facebook and Twitter what you think about the Purple Gang. Also, don't forget to check out the Patreon account. Today, I have an announcement that yet another fan has subscribed to the level of Consigliere, and that is Joey Cipriani. So, Consigliere Joey, thank you so much for your generous contribution. I promise it'll be used to continue to improve this show. In the meantime, don't forget to let me know in the comment section below or on social media who or what you would like to see covered next. I always love hearing from you, and I'm always happy to investigate. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click notifications to get more Mafia content sent directly to your sub box. Ciao!